coming up on today's episode.
One of the lyrics in that song is "There's an army on the dance floor," ARMY. But
whoa, this scene is on YouTube.
Yeah,
I go back and I watch it.
Yep.
Because it's one of my favorite scenes in cinematic history.
I don't blame you.
After I watched it, I was going, how did I wait this long?
The answers that you're looking for are lying just beyond the frame.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Frame. I'm your host, Joe Parente, at least host for this episode. Right. I'm still Joe Parente. I'm an actor.
Last I checked.
Yeah.
Still
I
that
haven't
guy.
seen my
Okay.
ID in a while, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's going to say. I'm an actor guy and a lover of movies and a student of life. And here to my left is a guy we call Ryan, and we call him that because it's his name.
Yeah, that is my birth name. I can confirm.
Right on. So Ryan, say hello to the fine people out there.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. We appreciate you for being here with us, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify or wherever the heck you're listening.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Leave a comment. Let us know you're here.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about the movie? Did you connect with it? And I'm a writer, director, and cinephile. And that's why we're here together, because we have these conversations and we just love movies and stories so much. And what we can get from them and apply to our own lives.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I'm excited for today's episode.
Me too. So Ryan and I choose themes for different months. So this is June. So we're sticking with an LGBTQ theme for the month for our legacy films. And today we are going to discuss the 2017 release, Call Me By Your Name, which is directed by Luca Guadagnino, who did a beautiful job.
Oh, God.
And I'll give a brief review, and then we'll discuss our theme for the show, which is how much understanding and compassion we give our fellow human beings.
Ooh, I like that.
So we'll talk about some great examples of that in this film later on in the show. And as Ryan was saying, if you're watching us on YouTube, we try our best to look presentable. And if you're hearing us via our podcast, we'll try to be as articulate as possible. However you've gotten here, thank you. And please leave a like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And again, as Ryan said, any comments, we freaking love to keep the conversation going.
Yes, please.
So this part is the spoiler-free section of our episode. So if you haven't seen it, we won't blow anything or possibly too much, at least here.
We'll do our best.
We
We'll
will
try.
do our best. And I'll give you a warning before we go into the spoiler section. So, Ryan, this was my first time seeing this film. And before I give a mini review, I'll just say that I loved it.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
And you?
We haven't talked about this at all.
No, we haven't.
Which I love when that happens, because this is always a surprise to see how it affected you, how you felt about it, and things like that. This was like my 9th time seeing this movie.
Wow.
I
Understandable.
absolutely adore this film. I've loved it since I saw it in 2017. Yeah, I can't get enough of it. So any excuse I have to watch this movie, I'll take
fantastic.
it. So, in other words, a small way of saying I'm a big fan of this movie.
Right on. It was it was on my short list, and so when we had the theme for June, this immediately came to the top. And I could tell when I texted you like, "Hey," and you text back immediately, "Great choice."
It's like, oh yes, that's such a perfect movie to kick off this
for sure
of June for these movies.
Totally agree, and it's just my first time seeing it, because I will see it
but
again.
not your first Luca film.
What was my first Luca film?
Queer.
Really? That was a Luca film.
That's Luca.
Okay.
So now you've seen 2 Luca films.
Okay, there we go.
And how do we...
So different.
What about... I mean, I don't want to get too ahead here, but what about this movie did you particularly like?
Well, one of the things was that it made me long for summers in Italy that I never had.
Oh, doesn't it? Doesn't it? That first...
It was so beautiful, both in terms of, the visual presentation, great storytelling.
The house.
The house, which, just a little bit of fun fact trivia, Luca wanted to buy the house that they...
I bet.
Yeah. He ended up not. He got talked out of it by Timothy. and Army. I don't know why. Maybe it was, in a ramshackle state, but it sure looked fantastic.
Oh
And
man, I'll take that house too. All the big doors open, all that air coming through.
Everything about it.
The orchard.
Yeah, everything about it.
Eating outside.
Yeah.
It does make you just want to book a trip.
It for sure.
Right away.
It was a remarkably tactile film, if you will. So I loved that. I loved the languid pacing. I just felt really, truly immersed. Even though there were Americans in this character, in this movie, it felt so European. And I love the fact that there was English spoken, but there was also quite a bit of French and Italian.
Yeah.
I just really, really loved that. And also just watching how they lived gave me ever so slight of streak of green with envy because it just so cultured.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just wow.
Yeah, this movie is so authentic.
It really is.
It feels really grounded. It feels really genuine. And the pacing is so smooth.
It's fantastic.
Every scene just kind of flows itself into the next. And it's just such a captivating, interesting story about these two people who fall in love in this whirlwind romance over the summer.
Yeah, for sure. So this movie takes place primarily over a 6-week period, the summer of 1983. And I will say that there's a song that gets played a couple of times in this movie that took me personally straight back to 1983. It was Love My Way by the Psychedelic Furs.
Love My Way. Okay, we're going to have to listen to that after this.
That song was huge in that summer. And by the way, Richard Butler wrote that about being gay. And and I didn't know that at the time. When I was reading up about this film, and it makes sense to me now, looking back and looking at and
listening to
thinking about the lyrics,
and
just it was such a big song, and that is the summer of '83
to
me. So I just loved how it had that transporting effect.
Wow,
to me
that must have been such a trip.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Very cool.
I wish it had taken me back to Crema, Italy, but it took me back to Los Altos. Anyway, we're following 17-year-old.
Next best thing.
Yeah, we'll look at it that way. We're following 17-year-old Elio, played by Timothée Chalamet, who's with his family in their summer resort in Lombardy in northern Italy, and he's an American. He is an American, though he speaks Italian and French, and I loved watching them switch between languages, sometimes in the same short conversation. Mm-hmm. Elio's father, played by Michael Stuhlbarg, is so good.
God, he's good in this.
Yeah, he's incredibly lovable.
Oh my gosh, such a teddy bear.
That's exactly what I was thinking. He was a teddy bear. He plays a professor of classics. I would love to take a class from him.
Totally.
And he's hired an intern who's getting his PhD, played by Armie Hammer, to come stay with them and work with them for 6 weeks.
And they this is like they do this every summer.
Yeah,
they have a new intern come in.
They
every
do.
summer.
They have a new intern.
So Army's just the latest.
Yeah, exactly. But he stands out clearly.
Yes.
So Elio himself is precocious. It's clear he's very bright and talented. He plays classical music on the piano. He transposes music from piano to guitar, which he also plays. And he reads voraciously. He's more cultured at 17 than most people ever will be, especially Americans.
Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
But there is one area of his life, of Elio's life, where he hasn't got a clue.
Yeah.
And that is where we have Oliver enter the scene. And he is played again by Armie Hammer. That's Dad's intern. He is smart, handsome, outgoing, charming, and flirty. He's comfortable in his skin.
That's good. Yeah, that's fair to say.
Yeah, that is what came across to me
authentic
immediately. Mm-hmm. And it was immediately like when he got to the house, he gets shown the bedroom, he plops on the bed, and, Elio tries to wake him up for dinner. Give my apologies.
I'm gonna sleep.
So it's not like I'm going to do this to be polite,
Totally.
I need to sleep.
Yeah.
And I love that. Right away, I just
agreed.
thought, I like this guy's character.
Mm-hmm.
I really like him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So Elio is instantly confused by Oliver's presence. And he actually finds him irritating,
Yeah.
and confusing, and
intriguing.
but intriguing.
Yeah.
So he was irritated and not. And thus begins a 6-week dance/romance, if you will. But it's not a smooth ride. He's new to this world. And he's so new that, he has sex for the first time with a young French woman, Marzia, played by Esther Garel, who clearly adores him. For Elio, it's exciting and confusing.
Yeah, definitely.
And clarifying at the same time.
Totally.
So all along the way, the scenery is stunning. They go swimming, they play volleyball, they take bike rides, they have long meals. It's seriously enviable stuff. Hence my shirt to get into the Euro, feel of it. My
Summer
God.
night.
So and also it really helps propel and give texture to the budding love that unfolds between Elio and Oliver.
Yes.
So yes, the pacing, like I said, is languid.
Mm-hmm.
And we have long stretches with very little or no dialogue. And that suits this movie just perfectly.
Totally.
It also features my favorite Sufjan Stevens song, which he wrote for this movie. And the song is The Mystery of Love.
So you knew that song prior to watching the movie?
I owned it since it came out.
Wow, interesting.
I love that song.
I love it too. I first heard it in the movie, and then I was like, "Oh my God, I gotta get this downloaded." So that's interesting. We have different. You knew the song before the movie. That's
I
that's
had
fascinating.
no idea it was written for this movie.
Wow, that is fascinating.
And then once I hear it in the movie, I was like, I love that song.
That probably was like a cool experience. Then you were like,
For sure.
This
For
is gonna
sure.
be cool.
And then to read that he wrote it for this movie. It's like,
specifically.
wow.
A couple of songs he wrote specifically for.
Correct. The director only asked for one, and Sufjan gave him 2.
Visions of Gideon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which Timothy Chalamet was listening to.
Yes.
Did you read about that as well? So when he was listening to his Walkman, that's what he was listening to a lot. Was that song to get him in the mode.
I respect it, and we'll talk about that later in the spoiler section.
Yeah,
because there's a scene I'm like itching so badly to talk about, but I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, and we will get to
wait for the
that. Then
spoilers.
we're gonna have my 2 scenes and your scene. So I really look forward to that.
Okay.
So although Oliver and the PhD candidate, who is 24 and more experienced in life, I missed a word there somehow, but this romance seems to also take him by surprise. It took Oliver very much by surprise. Mm-hmm. And yet this being 1983, when people were not yet accepting of gay people, Oliver still flirted and romanced, women, flirted with and romanced women. And we see that in this movie. And it's what men at the time felt they had to do to fit in.
Yeah. And
it's kind of hard for us to see that today or believe that today, given how accepting we are of gay people, particularly here in LA and in San Francisco, where I'm from. Mm-hmm. It makes me happy for my gay friends that we've come as far as we have in this regard.
Totally.
And maybe that's part of the benefit of living in California.
Absolutely.
But it's just, to me, I love that someone's sexuality just is part of the texture of who they are.
They're not othered by it anymore.
They're not othered by it at all.
It's huge. It's huge.
And I love that. When I first moved to San Francisco, I grew up in the Bay Area, but I first moved to San Francisco in 1990. And it was still going through a transition. And I worked at a cafe in North Beach, which is the Italian section, but still had a lot of gay patrons. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget one. I didn't mean to go down this road, but what the heck? Since we're here,
let's.
One Chip. I'll never forget him. I won't say his full name, but he was a lawyer, incredibly bright guy, and because he didn't want his family or his coworkers to know about him, he made a lot of frequent trips to Mexico City. And that's where he could be himself.
Interesting.
Even though he lived in San Francisco.
He still wasn't. Yeah.
Because he came from a very Ivy League, rigid thinking environment.
Sure.
So he got as far away as he could by going to Stanford and coming to California. but also just he couldn't even say the words to me in 1990.
Wow.
I got what he was saying,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
he
yeah,
couldn't even say it.
couldn't get it
How
out.
far we've come
Yeah,
in
I
that
mean, look at
particular
that.
sense, which is fantastic.
Look at that. Yeah, just the very fact that people can just be themselves
Yeah, for sure.
freely and choose to see whoever they want to see.
For sure. I agree. And, funny, that was my quote unquote review. I just kind of said what happened in the story, but if you couldn't tell, I just so loved it. I was completely bought in. It kept me captivated. Even if we did have long stretches of no dialogue, I didn't care.
No, because it all fit, like you said. The pacing
It was so appropriate.
it was just smooth. It just flowed in from one scene to the next,
Yeah.
and the performances from everyone involved, particularly from Timothy, who was he got an Oscar nomination for this,
Well deserved.
and then the father, just absolutely unbelievable.
And we're gonna get to
We're going to talk
get to
about that. But yeah, I like I said before, I'm a massive fan of this film. I love it. I adore it. I think that Luca just had such a grasp on this time period in Italy and recreating it in such a genuine and authentic way that just felt so real. I mean, no part of it to me was I'm watching a movie. It just felt like I was there. I was with them in that summer and experiencing it alongside them.
Isn't that remarkable? I mean, look, I can appreciate that as just a human being and someone who loves movies and as an actor for sure. But also, I would think for you as a filmmaker, to me, there was just clearly Luca just loved what he was doing.
Totally.
He loved the subject matter. To me, he loved everything about it. And I think that just really resonated. And when we get to the fun facts, I'm going to tell a little bit more about the love because I think it was very clear that this was a tight group.
And I believe this, I don't know, hopefully this isn't in your fun facts, but this won Oscar for Best Screenplay.
It did, for James Ivory.
Who was, at the time, I believe,
the oldest recipient of an Academy Award. I believe he's 89 years old.
Yeah, and this is this original?
No, this is an adapted.
This is adapted from
a
a book.
novel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Kudos to everybody involved. It's just a beautiful movie.
Yep.
And it's very moving, and it's very human.
So much
and it's a story about two people who fall in love.
Yeah.
And the complexities of, it's kind of a coming of age, but also, a character study, and it's a little bit of everything, and it just gives you a lot to chew on.
It does, and it doesn't feel like it bit off more than it could chew.
No, every shot is meticulously crafted, and the stretches that we have that are more montage-esque are so just vibrant and beautiful.
For sure.
And completely accompany the story and the plot and these characters. So I think this is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's
Understandable.
up there on the list.
Understandable.
I keep coming back to it.
I don't blame you, and I will now as well. To me, it blows my mind that I hadn't seen it yet.
It's like Training Day for me. It was like after I watched it, I was going, "How did I wait this long?" You same thing. Like, man, this has been on my list for years.
Yeah.
I've been depriving myself of this experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, since 2017, it's like gotta see that.
Totally.
So very, very happy I did. Obviously. So should we see if our stars align on this?
Let's see if our stars
Letterboxd
align, Joe.
scores.
I think that you gave it 4 stars.
You are absolutely correct.
Okay.
I did give it 4 stars, and I think you might have given it 4.5.
I did give it 4.5.
Okay.
I think it's my highest now on Letterboxd.
That is that I know of
Of the ones that we've
yes,
done.
That is,
I
that
think
is the highest.
I think that is the highest of what we've done so far.
I don't think I've given a 4.5 yet.
But 4's got to be up there for you.
It is the highest score I've given.
Yeah.
So,
I saw one recently we didn't do that I gave 4.5. My girlfriend and I watched Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights is great.
I gave Boogie Nights a 4.5.
Okay. That's understandable.
But Call Me By Your Name, I think that's fair. That's
Okay.
on par with, yeah.
Yeah.
It feels right.
Funny, Ryan and I shot another episode prior to this one, and through our discussion, we both raised our scores.
Yeah.
And I could see myself raising my score from this one because I gave it a 4 and I thought, why isn't it a 5? And I was on the way over here. I'm like, I don't know. Or why didn't I give it a 4.5? 5, I don't know that I'll ever give.
That's a perfect film. That's
right.
a 10 out of 10.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know what would keep me from. So I say a 4, but I don't know why I wouldn't give it a 4.
Well, let's see.
4.5.
Let's revisit this at the end of the episode.
Okay.
We'll see if
All
you
right.
bumped that 4 up.
Well, first, let's start with some fun facts. So this is where I guess I should say there will be spoilers, potentially. But anyway, just feel like there could be spoilers.
Spoiler alert, we might be heading into spoiler territory. If you haven't seen the film, go watch it. Come back and listen to the rest.
Do watch it, please.
Please, please.
So, okay, first fun fact. Timothy Chalamet learned to speak Italian, and he learned the classical pieces that he played on the piano, as one does.
Sure.
So since he's already fluent in French and English, picking up a third language quickly is not a stretch. Still, he did it.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge.
Which I think is really cool. I also want to say that I just as a side note, I just happened to catch on YouTube this woman, a lovely French woman, who reviews the French that American actors or people who aren't French, the French that people who aren't French speak. I said that very poorly. She wants to hear people who aren't French and how well they can speak French.
Sure.
Okay, there we go. So Timothy Chalamet, so she's listening for diction, for accent, for vocabulary. So she looked at like Bradley Cooper. And one of the things she said was Bradley Cooper is fearless when he speaks French. And he even said in a French interview, I'm not afraid to make a mistake. And I have a friend who that I grew up with who moved to Germany. And I went to see him 3 years in, and it was stunning. He spoke so quickly. And I could tell his accent was shit because he sounded like an American saying it, but everyone was loving it. And one of his German friends said to me, he is so bold. He makes mistakes. He doesn't care. And he keeps going.
Like a level of confidence.
The level of confidence. And also if one corrects, my friend didn't, he's like, yeah, tell me if I make a mistake. That's fine. And Bradley Cooper is clearly the same way. But anyway, she said Timothy Chalamet back in 2017 spoke French very well.
Sure.
She said now his French, she said, is like impeccable.
Totally.
So clearly he's been working on it. But he has a French father.
Right.
He spent summers in France with his grandparents.
Totally, yeah.
So that's just something he grew up with.
Part of it, yeah.
Also, brain-wise, if you already speak 2 languages, the third will take you. Languages, if you and I just started speaking a language, it could take us between 4 and 6 years.
Woof.
Once you have the second one under your belt, every subsequent language takes roughly 2 years or less to learn. I have a good friend who, not kidding, already spoke 4 languages. Then he went and stayed in Spain with his girlfriend's family, and over the summer he learned Spanish.
Whoa, man, that's crazy how the brain works.
That's Stefan, man. You are a polyglot, my friend.
That is
very
fascinating.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was really cool that he did that.
I always wish
for
I
this
knew
movie.
another language.
Me too, and Pig Latin just doesn't count. So,
I've tried to pick up other languages. Like I took Spanish in school. Obviously,
Yeah,
I
me
had
too.
to. That never stuck. I tried to do French on my own, like outside of, because they say French is the easiest to learn if you know English. If you're a native English speaker, it's like the most close.
My tongue can't do French. My ears can't hear it, and my tongue can't speak it.
Yeah, and I've tried, and it hasn't stuck.
No,
so.
French is Greek to me. Anyway, the second fun fact. The film crews in Italy like to work only 8 hours, and then the day is done. And they like to have their evenings off. Timothy Chalamet and Armie Hammer spent most all of their free time together, having espressos, going to dinner at restaurants, listening to music together, watching movies, hanging out in their hotel room. And they became very close and remain very close to this day.
Wow.
Or so IMDb told me.
I love that.
And I think that really comes across because the two of them have fantastic chemistry.
Totally.
And you could see
tell.
where these guys just really get along well.
Yeah, the infamous things that you always heard about this film was that Luca, when they did the chemistry test or whatever, he just had them make out under a tree and then he just walked away.
So the way I read that was they went for their first day of rehearsals or practice, and I think they only had this one day, and they just flipped open somewhere on the script Like, let's just open it up and do that. And the scene was them, rolling around in the grass making out. And the
like,
two
well.
actors looked at each other and goes, well, let's do this.
Yeah.
And then, and Luca walked away.
Totally.
And they just kind of kept going and they're just being very professional, if you will.
Yeah.
I
Waiting
thought
for a
was,
cut or something. Yeah. What the heck,
which
man?
never came.
Yeah.
So the third fun fact, Oliver appears to have a very special affinity for the song Love My Way. And when it comes on, he runs to the dance floor. And
I love that scene.
Me too. And like I said earlier, Richard Butler, who's the lead singer for the Psychedelic Furs, actually said the song was written for gays struggling with their sexuality, which Oliver clearly was.
Wow.
Also,
that adds a layer to this.
For sure. Also, one of the lyrics in that song is "There's an army on the dance floor," ARMY, but
whoa,
there was an army on the dance floor.
This is
Army
textured,
Hammer.
man.
Isn't that
Luca,
cool?
baby.
I know.
The guy doesn't miss.
No. So, okay. So we've already given the spoiler warning. So, Ryan, there are two scenes in particular that I really would love to discuss.
I'm thinking you're going to discuss one of the scenes that is one of my favorite scenes
How
in
could
cinema
we not?
history.
How could we not? So
Yeah.
that is absolutely that's the second one. But this is where we're going to talk about the theme here too, which is radical acceptance.
Yeah.
And before we get into those, I want to ask you: have you ever experienced what you might call radical acceptance, or for you or your actions, or have you ever given radical acceptance, to a loved one, to a friend?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, totally. I think the older that I've gotten, the more mature that I've gotten, the more I've grown as a person, the more accepting I've been of people's different beliefs.
Oh,
than me,
okay.
and different values and different, the way everybody sees the world differently through their own individual lens. And I think as I've gotten older and more mature, I've been able to realize that more and be more open and accepting to people having different views than my own, which I think is like, I wish more people felt that way, because obviously the world would be a much better place.
I'm just going to give a heavy side of that.
Yeah. But it's so true. A lot of times I'll see that people think people should be like me or the way I think.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't think that way, you're wrong.
Yeah.
I know people like that personally in my life. But you're doing such a disservice, because just because you think differently than I do doesn't mean you're wrong. It doesn't mean I'm right, or vice versa. We could both be right.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a totally different view on life than I do, because you're Joe.
Yeah.
You've lived
I can't help
a
it.
completely different life than
That's
I
right.
have. And you have your own quirks and your own experiences and your own family and friends and genes. And there's so much that makes you, you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have so much that makes me, me. And so for me to think that, well, you should think the way I do, and if you don't, that's just wrong. It's kind of silly. So I think
silly is such a great way to put it.
that was a long-winded way of saying the older I've gotten, the more accepting I have been of people having different views than my own.
I really love that, because it is the easier road to take as we get older is to get more entrenched in our perspectives, because you can see that in so many people who are, as they age. I have watched people that I know become a bit more rigid in their thinking, and their
think
tolerance has diminished.
I was going to say, you think that's because you have less tolerance as you get older?
I do. I also think that if one stops exploring, questioning, wondering, and it starts, because you can quietly just think, I know that, I know what's up with that. I don't need to look around that corner. I've been there.
I've been on the earth long enough. I know.
Right. Like, I
things
know
work.
what's up. Really, really do you? And I also think those people, it's reflected in the fact that they will be less apt to question their own motives and their own way of thinking.
Totally.
And my proverbial hat goes off to you in what you're saying and becoming more tolerant.
I admire that about you. I admire that you have always kept and maintained this sort of, I don't know. I could not know. You're always open to new ideas and to learning and to growing. And that's massively important, I think, to developing your character.
I appreciate that. I will say that's something that I had to work at.
Totally.
And I still do.
Yeah.
But I guess
You're
it's
human.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also because I want to, we've talked about this in a previous episode. How alive is a person, to me, has a lot to do with their ability to be spontaneous, their ability to go off, what they're supposed to be doing, what have you, and have kind of like a childlike wonder about the world and other people, and try to do their best to keep a fresh perspective. And that's relating back to these scenes. The radical acceptance we saw in these scenes just made me cry like a baby. I was so really deeply moved.
It's what you long for. It's what everybody longs for, to be
Isn't
told.
it though? And
To be received in that way.
that's right. And so this is where, see, that's obvious to you. And I wish it were obvious to more people, because if they thought about, you could be the golden rule kind of thing. But if people thought about what do they want, would be radical acceptance. And so where do you start? You freaking give it.
Yeah,
That's where you start.
Putting yourself in their shoes, man.
Totally.
And just going, if I was them, how would I want to be received?
Yeah.
How would I want this news to be?
That's right. That's right. So the first scene, going along with this theme, and thank you for sharing that stuff. I dig it. Is after Olio and his mother have dropped Oliver off the train station, and Olio is deeply saddened.
Elio.
Sorry, that's
a typo.
autocorrect.
That's a
No,
typo.
but that's the autocorrect, and I hate that. Elio, Jesus, he's really saddened by the departure of Oliver. And he doesn't know if he's going to see Oliver again. So they make the drive back to the villa, and along the way they stop at the village, and Mom gets out to pick up some stuff. And he sees, Marzia spots him, the woman that he'd had sex with earlier in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And she's hanging out with some of her girlfriends and their bikes, because, people don't drive as much over there. And also they're young.
Right.
They're like 17.
Yeah.
And she sees Olio sitting in the car, and she comes over, and she's been hurt by Elio. He totally ghosted her.
Yeah.
And she said to him, part of why I'm not sure if I want to have sex with you is I don't want to get hurt.
Right.
Very human.
Totally.
And they do have
Reasonable.
sex, and he does hurt her.
Yeah.
He completely
Leaves her
blows
high
her
and
off.
dry. Yeah.
So she comes over to the car, and Elio gets out, and it's clear he's been crying. And she was so sweet.
Oh, she was. Yeah.
And she thanks him for the book of poems that he gave her. And she also acknowledges his sadness, and then tells him that she's not mad at him, not at all. And she pauses, and she tells him she loves him.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Oof. That's a good one. That's
and you
a
can
good
see
scene.
that she means it,
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
My first reaction, because I don't know if you caught Elio's reaction, but he kind of, he folded his arms, and he kind of looks down, and, he nods.
It's shame.
It is, that's absolutely it. It is
Yeah.
absolutely shame. And I just thought, oh no.
Poor Elio, yeah. What he's been
And
through.
then, and I thought, oh, this is awkward.
Yeah, and poor her.
And then she so blew me away.
Yeah, two people that are hurt.
Two people that are hurt, and
And
she
she
puts
could-
she puts her hand out and says, "Stay friends." And Elio replies, "For life."
What a great scene, man. That whole thing is just so good. All of it, every part of it. The way that the two of them understood each other, and how quickly she was able to read that. I mean, and put her feelings aside.
And that goes back to something that I talked about months ago on an earlier show, and that was a definition of true love, of real love.
Yeah.
And to me, this fits that definition because she loved him, and she put that before her hurt feelings.
Totally. And that's massive. That moves mountains. If only we had more Marzias in our
No
lives.
kidding. Because
Yeah.
she wants to be friends with him.
Yeah.
She
After
wants
all
him
that's
in her
happened,
life.
yeah.
I just, amazing.
Yeah.
So I freaking love that. And the next scene, we are absolutely talking about the scene of Elio and his father.
look how bad I'm grinning, man. I'm not shitting you. I have this bookmarked on YouTube. Their scene is on YouTube.
Yeah.
I go back and I watch it.
Yep.
Because it's one of my favorite scenes in cinematic history.
I don't blame you because it's perfect.
It is.
It's absolutely perfect. I loved
The delivery.
the delivery was, I made me wonder how many cuts they did this in. And I would like to think that they did it in as few as possible.
Yeah.
Because the emotional tenor of it, Michael Stolberg is,
Oh, God.
could you ask for a better
unreal.
father?
Unreal.
That is just, and I don't know if I can do this scene justice, but, I'll retell it as best I can just for people who maybe haven't seen it. Or if you haven't seen it, please do again. But if you have seen it, just to refresh your memories. And also, yes, you can find it on YouTube. But still, Elio comes back to the villa and is truly distraught. And he finds his father sitting on the couch in one of their rooms, reading some papers. And Elio joins him, and Dad says, "You two had a nice friendship." And goes on to tell him that he's too smart not to know how rare and special such friendships are, even at the age of 17.
Oh, baby.
He said that most parents would not approve of such a friendship, but that he's not that kind of parent.
Don't we all just want this? God,
So-
don't we all just want this,
Totally.
man? We need,
So this is what he said that he said, we rip out so much of ourselves to be cured of things faster that we go bankrupt by the age of 30.
Oh, God.
And we have less to offer each time we start with someone new. But to make yourself feel nothing so as to not feel anything, what a waste. Right now there's sorrow and pain, but don't kill it, because with it, the joy you felt.
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh. Everything about this scene is just so moving. It's why I want to make movies. This scene is it. It's why. It's what, to me, it means to tell a story.
I guess also I could say looking at that made me want to act that much more, because I wanted to be either one of them on the couch. I can't be Timothy Chalamet. I can't be Elio anymore. Those years have passed. But to be as loving and warm and genuine as Michael Stolberg would be a phenomenal achievement, because you're doing, look, this is where cinema and good filmmaking and good acting really play an important role, because how many countless millions of people were touched by that, could relate to it, it helped them. That's
what it's
just
all about.
Isn't that fantastic filmmaking? And it doesn't have to feel overly ponderous. It doesn't have to take itself super seriously.
No.
This was a very human scene between a loving father and his son.
Yeah.
And I love also how, Elio lays down and puts his head on his dad's lap. It just, heart melty.
I love too when he
Stuff.
he pauses and he says, "Have I spoken out of turn?"
Yeah. And did you notice Timothy Chalamet's response?
And then he doesn't.
He went like this.
Yeah,
He barely moved
slightest.
his head.
Yeah, they both play this to
Barely.
absolute perfection. I mean, this is a brilliant scene, brilliantly acted.
You're making me, since we're diving into this scene as much as we are, Timothy Chalamet, sees his dad, and his dad, puts the papers aside and then pulls out some cigarettes and lights one up, because that's what they were doing in '83 in Italy, and probably today, not as much, but anyway. Timothy Chalamet sits next to him. Elio sits next to him on the couch, and then just turns away from him and just looks out the window. And I thought, that's exactly what I would do.
Totally.
Because you're feeling so much emotion, it's difficult to make eye contact with someone.
100%.
And you're just out the window thinking about the person you love.
Yeah. Yeah. I do this. I've done it many times in my life. I do the same thing. You're feeling so much, yeah. That's what I mean. He just plays it so unbelievably brilliantly. Both of them do that. It just, you can't, this scene, just my eyes are absolutely glued. I can't think or fathom anything else. It just sucks you in.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful moment.
It is. The dad also lets Elio know that he never had
what he had. He
got
close.
He got close. But things got in the way, or he didn't let it happen, as he put it. So with this beautiful short conversation, he showed how much he loves his son and accepts him, and that he can celebrate what he himself never had, though he may have wanted, very much. And baby, that is radical acceptance.
I think exactly to what you were saying, radical acceptance.
And real love, too.
And a brilliant first line that he opens up with by saying, or not first line, but he says that, most parents would hope that this goes away.
That's right.
Because put yourself in their shoes. Like you have this intern, this 24-year-old intern that comes over. Oh, he corrupted my son. Like there's so many different ways you can look at this. Yeah. And the fact that the father was able to be so compassionate and so understanding and so radically accepting is it moves you. You can't help but be moved, because it's what all of us long for in a partner, a friend, a parent, to be accepted in that way, no matter what we are or what we believe in or how we see the world.
I totally agree. You know what it also shows? I mean, which is, part and parcel of acceptance and love, just profound respect for his son. Really, really profound. And you got that impression. The mother didn't play as big of a role, but you absolutely got that impression as well.
Oh, loved him to pieces.
Oh, man. Really, really something. So an incredibly moving film.
Yes. Can't recommend it enough.
Me either. No. Yeah. And if you like that one, here are 5 recommendations for other films that it's hard to touch that.
Totally.
But here are 5, which most of which I've seen and enjoyed. The first is Blue is the Warmest Color, starring 2 French women whose names I cannot pronounce if my family's lives depended on it.
Fair.
But they explore love, identity, and sexuality, and I loved it. And you can find that on AMC+. 2 is Moonlight, a film Ryan and I covered in a previous episode, and we told you to see it then, and I'm telling you to see it again now.
You have to.
You can find that on Prime Video. The third is My Summer of Love, about 2 girls in Yorkshire who come from different classes, who discover a lot about themselves and each other over a summer. It stars Emily Blunt, and it can be found on Prime Video.
Interesting.
Yeah. It sounds that way to me, too. I've not seen that one yet, but I will.
I will.
Number 4 is All of Us Strangers, starring Paul Mescal and Andrew Scott, 2 brilliant actors. How could this not be
powerhouse?
Good? Totally. About a man who comes back to his childhood home and falls in love with the man who lives in the downstairs apartment. It hits on loneliness, memories, and love. You can find that also on Prime Video. And last but not least, The Dreamers, starring Ava Green and Michael Pitt, about an American in 1968 who goes to study in Paris, and you can imagine what happens. It's all very French and beautiful and tragic. So
love it.
You can find that on Amazon.
All right. Great Rex.
So I want to say thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, as always, you're the main character of your own life. So don't be afraid to take a step back and look at the bigger picture, because sometimes the answers that you're looking for are lying just beyond the frame. We'll see you next time.
Peace.